nice. Yeah, getting free cards and free cups. That's everything I aspire to in my life. It's getting free stuff at bars. All right, that was Set Fire to the Rain by 21. Or maybe that was mislabeled as 21. I don't know what 21 is. But you're listening to the Power 92.3 WKVR. I'm Jdox. I'm here with... The Static. And we are just putting some static right in your ears tonight. We're going to make a whole bunch of white noise because we're white. Hey. That should be a separate show, as white noise, where we just come in here and just be like, well, you know, if these minorities want to, have social mobility, they just need to work harder.
Oh,
that would be the most.
I love straw men like
God
everyone,
Christ.
But that hurt.
That hurt to say, but I do it. I make that sacrifice for my art. This is the Slouch, where we come in here late on a Tuesday night when we are sure that nobody at all is listening, and we just come in here and chill out and talk.
Yep.
We talk about all kinds of stuff. What are we talking about this week?
I don't know. You got anything?
I don't know. I think we have something.
Well, I got
something new that just happened on some certain consoles and the PC and the video gamosphere.
We want to jump right into Fallout 4.
Yeah, why not? Let's get nerdy.
Well, I had some birthday money, and since I have no social life...
That's nice.
Well, that's not true. I have a social life that's on life support and no significant other to speak of. I spend that birthday money... Well, I split that birthday money between me and putting it away for when I'm a poor, low salary earning individual.
Oh, he's a responsible basement dweller.
So I bought Fallout 4, and it's really fun. Gameplay wise, it's a lot like, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, but with some more polish.
Yeah.
Like nicer animations, nicer textures, etc., etc. But my big nitpick with it is that they kind of went the Mass Effect route with the player character with, the voice acting is nice, but, they limited your dialogue options at every, juncture, every pause.
Yeah, you got 4 buttons.
To 4, and that really bugs me because I really liked being able to see the dialogue trees in the older games. Because you could know which ones would be like, oh, well, I'm just faffing about with the dialogue, and this one is progression, and this is not so clear.
Yeah.
And that just bugs me.
Yeah, especially when there would be 3 different ways to handle a situation.
Yeah.
Like if you had your strength to a certain amount, you could intimidate, or if you had your speech to a certain amount, or if you had your science to everything else, you had some different other dialogue options based on your skills.
The best part about those though was they would still be shown even if you didn't meet the stat check, but it wouldn't look right.
Yeah, if there was a charisma check, where it's just if you have 60% charisma, you could be like, oh well, you could give me these guns, or I could take them and shoot you with them.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that amount, the option that it gives you is just hey man, guns are cool, dude, and I don't have any. Hey, I mean, you'll be a bro, dude.
Yeah, something like that.
It's just some awful.
My favorite one is if you ever played any of the Fallout games with super low intelligence,
yeah,
which I recommend doing. The dialogue is hilarious.
It's just a lot of grunts, simple words.
It's simple words.
A lot of caveman speak.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah. But if you play that with high charisma, you can channel that into being a very charming, very dumb person.
Yeah.
That actually manages miraculously to convince people. Which, I mean, I think we may have talked about this in the past or on a previous episode, but in terms of charm, in terms of very influential stupid people, have you heard about that the Jar Jar Binks theory?
No.
We're gonna come back to Fallout 4 at some point tonight.
I've not heard the Jar Jar Binks theory.
So a lot of you might know the character Jar Jar Binks from Star Wars. The Star Wars that a lot of people don't like to remember, that a lot of people like to block out. The Phantom Menace specifically, where they introduced this character Jar Jar that was the goofy Misa Jar Jar Binks. We'll be servant for now. Oh, the gods demand it. Oh, we show you the...
Yeah, the character that was super hyped up and immensely disappointing.
There was, especially the image that always comes to mind when I think of Jar Jar was push pops, like little lollipops you push out of a thing.
Yes.
There was one literally they made
It was a Jar Jar
mark
push pop.
that was his tongue. So the idea behind this candy, this lollipop, was that like there was a plastic Jar Jar mouth that opened up and his tongue was like candy, and you just made out with Jar Jar Binks.
That's so bad. That's so bad.
Oh, but this so circulating recently, and it's been really popular to the point where like we can't not talk about it on our great Nerd Talk radio. That Jar Jar Binks is actually a Sith Lord, and not in the sense that somebody says like, hey, with the new movie coming out, wouldn't it be crazy if it was like Darth Binks and he was bad?
I will end them if
It's
they
not a
do
joke.
that.
It's not a joke. But it was supposed in The Phantom Menace, there was this huge, if you have the capability, look up on Reddit, just Jar Jar Binks theory. Just Google that. And there is a really like pretty well backed up theory that Jar Jar Binks was the like secret puppet master behind the first movie, behind the whole trilogy initially, but then he was cut out because of the really negative fan reaction to Jar Jar Binks. And it goes through a lot of great evidence for it, specifically, Jar Jar, like when he was in the final battle on that field with the droids and with all those little like glowing blue orbs that had electricity. Yep. He did some goofy stuff when he was getting shot at, and he managed to like just fall and dip and dodge everything like a total goof, like some comic relief stuff, that where he's too lucky for his own good. And as famously we know from the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't believe in luck. And he has experienced no such thing, which they quote, while they build this argument that Jar Jar Binks does all of this stuff to build Jar Jar Binks as like a very powerful Force user, does all this stuff to build up a persona of the harmless bumbling idiot, while low-key setting things up in a lot of ways.
This hurts my soul to listen.
Now it's really interesting too. It's really interesting to see these arguments they make, because there's a lot of moments where Jar Jar Binks, like, there was that bit where he like jumps 20 feet in the air and does like 3 flips into like the water or something while doing that. Splash.
Ew.
There's a lot of comparisons to his animation and his motion style compared to a certain form of martial arts called drunken boxing that uses swinging your body's momentum around in what looks like a very drunken way, but also projects the idea to your enemy that you are uncoordinated, and so their guards aren't necessarily up. It it makes you look drunk, and then your enemy sort of doesn't take you seriously, and you use that against them.
Yep.
Which is really reflects this idea of Jar Jar. But he does a lot of stuff that reflects the drunken boxing style of martial arts, especially doing the kip up, which is like you're on your back and you do that like crazy
the
back motion to like boom, jump right up on your feet.
The kick.
Yeah, he does that at some point, and then it digs into a little more of like that he's like also a master mind controller with the Force, with the, I know you give me that look, DJ Static, I know it's hard, with
Jar Jar Binks, man.
with the hand wave motion, where in a lot of instances, where you see Jar Jar Binks like gaining some sort of influence, he's talking and he's being his goofy self, but his hands are moving all the time. And this happened with the Gungan like general dude who was the dude.
Yeah.
When Jar Jar, when he was promoting him to like a general or something, Jar Jar was just like, oh no, I can't do that, while he's waving his hands, and then he's like, no, you will be general. Then there's instances like later on in the second and third movie where he's like a senator, and he's talking to people and he's waving his hands. That was a large argument for it, was how the hell could Jar Jar Binks have ever become a senator of any power of influence, especially the dude who says in that pivotal scene, like, oh, and we are now putting all of our political power into the Supreme Chancellor, Senator Palpatine, and he will become, and we will restructure the Galactic Republic into a galactic empire. And he's waving his hands dramatically doing this in the Jedi mind control persuasive way. And like, really, how could Jar Jar have ever been in that sort of position of power if he really was a bumbling fool?
Because he's a patsy.
I mean, that was definitely the way it was portrayed in the movies. It was like, okay, so Jar Jar's like, you know, the fool on Palpatine or something. Anyway, but Palpatine always has Jar Jar in his squad. If he was really the patsy or something, once he like sets Palpatine up as the Emperor, then he like doesn't need him necessarily. And why would he have the influence to like make that call to the Senate? It doesn't matter. But
I think you're reading a lot into a very irritating bit character.
this was a this was the theory they read into it. I'm just relaying it. But there was a really interesting piece that just came to light to me today, was that in The Phantom Menace, Jar Jar is often seen in the background mouthing, like subtly mouthing some of the words that other characters are saying. I'm not kidding. That like as though he were controlling them. And I want to send you these links because it's really cool. It's a really convincing thing. But the idea behind all of this
Still
was
skeptical.
I know it's very easy to be, because you know, we all know and the culture around Jar Jar Binks is so firmly rooted in this idea.
And hatred.
Yeah, and that he was like a mistake. So, but supposedly, the theory goes that the idea behind this was that, in the same way, like the big twist at the end of the second movie in the first trilogy, The Empire Strikes Back, was, you know, Darth Vader going like, "Luke, I am your father." Boom, that was the big twist. In the second prequel movie, that was meant to have been the twist. Was that Jar Jar finally gets outed. He's like, you know, the one behind the stuff. He like he's either in cahoots with Palpatine or he's like at a higher level than Palpatine.
Here's the big flaw I'm seeing in this theory, though. If he's some huge mastermind responsible for Palpatine's rise to power, where is he in the original trilogy?
What do you mean?
Jar Jar, where is he? If he's such a big deal, if he's so important, where is he in the Empire when the original trilogy happens?
I mean, we don't know what would have happened to Jar Jar if the evil Jar Jar arc had completed. But the thing is after the first movie, after the Phantom Menace came out, there was such a catastrophe. There was such fallout from it, and everyone hated, especially Jar Jar Binks, that they had to consider, like, okay, this was sort of like a risky move to maybe set up this fool becomes the villain, like, arc or something. And, everyone hates him so much, like, we can't do it. We have to, like, totally change everything. We have to restructure it. Which, this theory rationalizes then why Count Dooku, played by... Is Ian McKellen? No. That's Christopher Lee. Right.
Who is rest in peace.
Yeah. What a cool
Glorious actor.
He played some great...
The one man J.R.R. Tolkien said could play Gandalf if it ever came to the film, and ended up playing Saruman the White.
Yeah. Man, what a great evil old white man with a beard. But,
Actually,
which is why the character...
thing about Dooku is Dooku was brought in partially because of Christopher Lee's interest, but also partially because there's evidence somewhere of originally Darth Maul was meant to be a much bigger character that wasn't killed off the way he was. He was originally cast with Benicio del Toro. He was meant to be a much more intelligent, sinister kind of character. Yeah.
Or what other roles were
Benicio
Benicio del Toro in that I would know him from?
There's a really old, Google him real fast. There's a really old trailer somewhere that has Darth Maul delivering a really chilling speech. All of those lines were cut from the movie. Darth Maul became like a kind of rage-fueled berserker as opposed to a very clever assassin that he was supposed to be. And so Dooku was sort of the answer to, well, what do we do now that we don't have Darth Maul?
Yeah.
Because there must always be two. The rule of two.
Okay, so from what I know from some of the expanded fiction was that Darth Maul survived getting cut in half at the end of Phantom
Yes.
Menace. Spoiler alert for Darth Maul getting
Got
cut in half, I
robot
guess.
legs.
Yeah, but then he came back. He got like some robot spider legs, and then I think he got robot normal legs or something. And
Well,
his
he
like
got, like,
brother
robot
exploded,
T-Rex
and some
legs.
kid like sassed him.
He got robot T-Rex legs, like the backwards hinge joint, you know?
That's so dumb.
But
okay.
it's evil.
Benicio
And
del
they had
Toro.
clawed feet.
I'm trying to remember what I know this guy from. Well, so this theory poses actually that
I
instead
think he
of
might have played the Collector in Guardians of the Galaxy.
yeah, I think you're right.
For a more recent appearance.
Oh.
No?
Wait, hold on. Yeah, he was the Collector. It also lists him as Star Wars Episode 8 as main villain. You can't just say that. You can't just say that, Wikipedia. That's a spoiler
juicy.
alert.
That's juicy.
That's a spoiler alert. What do I know him from?
Lots of stuff, probably.
Oh, God. Oh, he was Dr. Gonzo in Fear and Loathing. That must be it. That's it. Okay, there we go. So, this theory about Jar Jar being the evil Sith Lord mastermind was actually sort of replaces what you just said about like, well, Darth Maul like was supposed to be a bigger piece and supposed to come back and have more things, which I don't know if that would or wouldn't be a thing, but like the idea behind this Jar Jar theory was after the first movie just got shredded to pieces and everyone hated on Jar Jar. They don't want to see Jar Jar again ever, and they ended up seeing him in the second and third prequel movies for a couple seconds at a time. They I mean, Lucas had to be like, okay, we gotta reconsider this. We wanted to like play this crazy arc, but like it would get too whack, so they had to cut that evil Jar Jar arc entirely and then bring in Christopher Lee as Count Dooku, sort of the replacement villain. You know that scene at the end of Attack of the Clones where like Yoda fights Count Dooku? Uh-huh. That was supposedly, to this theory, supposed to be the scene just after Jar Jar Binks is, revealed in the I am your father, the moment. Well, Jar Jar Binks is hopefully nobody's father, but that Jar Jar Binks was like, I am a Sith Lord. And I would love if like his like goofy voice just like cut away to just be like a more serious. Anyway, but that was supposed to be a fight between Jar Jar Binks and Yoda then.
So how does this Jar Jar theory relate to Fallout?
I don't know. I don't know how we got here.
I was talking about Fallout and Commander
Okay, well
Shepard.
this was so dumb, and
speaking like an idiot.
Yeah, speaking like an idiot, but being very influential and charismatic.
Yes.
Sorry, I segued our one nerd talk into another nerd talk that I was just bursting at the seams to talk about. But let's get back to Fallout 4, why don't we?
I mean, what about it?
What about it?
Questions do you have?
You've been playing it.
I mean, it's really fun. What else can I say?
I watched like an hour's worth of playthrough on the Game Grumps associated Commander Holly channel. And that was pretty chill. But names that you can have in it.
Oh.
Names like Assface.
Did you know also?
I have a list of them up.
Get this. The name John Cena works.
Are you kidding me?
I kid you not.
Oh, I gotta.
So I am expecting a mod that inserts his theme song before every occurrence of the game. Sunday, 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 Sunday.
I was
That's one of my favorite memes. There's actually a whole subreddit devoted to it. You should check it out sometime called
I will.
Unexpected Cena.
I love John Cena
Some of them
memes.
are really like bad and you can see it coming from a mile away.
Well, if you're
Some
on
of
the
them-
John Cena meme Reddit
Well,
page, I would imagine.
Here's the thing. The way Reddit works, you subscribe to subreddits, and so things will go up on your front page. You don't always see what subreddit it comes from, and people are sometimes really good at titling the videos. And so you'll click on a video, and then bam, da 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 da, da 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 da.
I feel like I see what you mean with that, but like if it didn't line up with the other, I don't follow many subreddits.
That's part
So
of the
if it didn't line up with Monster Hunter, Gundams, or Monster Musume, then I probably wouldn't be.
You're also
wouldn't be going up with
you're
it.
also subscribed to a whole bunch of defaults when you make an account.
No, I canceled those.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Smart man.
'Cause I don't need that stuff filling up my feed.
Smart man. I mean,
So
to
when
be
it
fair,
comes,
most
so
of-
when those
most of
memes
my
come
stuff-
across Tumblr or Facebook, though, then it's more like where I don't know what this is necessarily.
Yeah.
If I see like a comment below, I'd be like, should have seen that coming. Then I'll be like, okay,
yeah.
it's just
most of mine now are like tech subreddits, like graphics programming and boring stuff like that.
Okay.
Because I don't go to Reddit for any sort of.
So can you imagine the kind of video that would just be like, someone's like doing a video tutorial of some Java code, and they're just like, and so next what we're going to do is just import this code right here to splice in John Cena.
No, I'm also subscribed to a bunch of humor ones. Like a good one is Super Saiyan GIFs.
Oh, I like those things.
You've probably seen.
Oh,
those. Those are great.
Okay, we're getting real deep into internet garbage. So I wanted to look at some of these Fallout names because I'm just looking at them right now. I'm in the K's apparently. There's just a big list of them.
You can call your person. You can name your person Bruce Wayne. You can be Batman.
That's cool. I see Kirk. There's Knight. Lionheart. I was seeing. There's Marky Poo. That's nice. There's some just obscure ones like Marsden.
Those are probably references to like some sort of science fiction something.
Because I was seeing that people, I don't know what these references are. There's one called Megilones. There's a Max, which I think I was reading about. There was one where they have like Mad Max character names in there. Like you can get Furiosa. And for anyone listening, for Fallout 4, you make a character and you put in your name, but they recorded voiceover work from other characters for a whole bunch of different names, which I can't imagine like the volume of voice acting work that must have taken. But so you can put your name in and they will call you by that name at certain points, as long as it is generally a fairly common name.
Yeah. Or one of the ones they
Or
put
if your
in.
name is Mudguts or Muldoon.
Or
Muhammad is listed on here twice. Oh, it's two Muhammads. A Muhammad with an M-O and an M-U.
There's also a whole bunch of names that are actually recorded that are a mix of words we're not allowed to say on air.
Orgasmo.
That was, yeah.
Nurmo Hamadi.
All right.
That's pretty cool. Oh, Pendleton, like Pendleton Moore, the creator of Adventure Time.
Yep.
You can be Prince. There's no,
I feel like these were some sort of like secret like industry Kickstarter reward stuff.
Yeah, that might have been.
Like they went around
I'm just like,
soliciting, like they went around soliciting like creative types in like the animation and games industry, and they're like, give us your names and your money.
Yeah, it'd just be like, oh, my friend, or someone's just like, oh, my friend, some dev for it is just like, my friend's nickname is the Snackmeister, so we're gonna spend.
I know where you got that from.
We're gonna spend 8 hours in the recording studio making sure all of these voice actors recorded Snackmeister. What are you talking about? I don't know where
someone's nickname
as the Snackmeister.
Yeah, Snackmaster.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Are we thinking of the same thing?
Yeah.
No, let's throw it out.
No. DJ Steve.
DJ Steve.
Yeah, on Facebook for a long time, his name was Snackmaster.
Wow, that was buried really deep down in my brain. I didn't have I'd totally forgotten that, and it just came bubbling back up, and I didn't have like an association, right? I didn't have anything to. Perky Pile is a name on here. Perky Pile.
I don't like the sound of that one.
Okay, do you think PewDiePie's on here? There's one called Rocketansky. That's a reference. That's a reference to something. That sounds familiar. That's like a character from like Rocky Horror Picture Show or something.
Definitely not, but I don't know where that would be from.
Romanov, you can be Black Widow. That's pretty chill. Scully.
Well,
they have Scully.
The Romanovs were also, I think, a historical family in old Tsarist Russia.
I imagine it's a pretty common name actually for
I think the Romanovs
Slavic
were the last family of Tsars. I'm probably very wrong.
Oh, you can play as Snake.
Snake,
the mutants are up on the mountain again. I'm on it. They played us like a damn fiddle.
Oh, Metal Gear.
Oh, God. My voice actually sounds really great when I'm doing that. I'm just like, Metal Gear.
Oh, Metal Gear.
Metal Gear fires nukes. Otacon. I need you to get these key cards and put them on my ass.
Oh, nanomachines.
Otacon. Who is this guy with the pink hair? The white hair? Who is this anime Bishonen guy in front of me? Otacon, who is this? He's like,
Hey, big
Snake.
boss.
That's Snake. And he's like, that's not Snake. It's like, oh, sorry, no, it's Jack. Who the hell is that? I don't know, I'm just having fun
boy.
doing David Hayter voice.
Oh boy.
You know what? Static.
I am aware.
All right, what other names are on here?
We're done with the names now.
No, there's got to be something else. There's got to be something else here, and I gotta. Oh, Splendid.
Splendid, is that a name?
Yeah, you can be Tallahassee. That's pretty cool. You can be Tetsuo
Oh,
Kaneda.
no.
In Akira, their voices don't
Bad-
crack.
bad times.
Oh, dude, Toe Cutter. That's a Mad Max character. I think that was like one of the villains in the first movie. Was Toe Cutter.
Indeed it was.
Oh, that's cool. Vash the Stampede. There's Unbreakable is a name on here. That's. I feel like the further down the alphabet I go, they just get dumber and dumber. I don't know. Wisniewski. Wood.
Wood.
You'd be Zed. Zed's dead.
Treebeard should be a name.
Oh.
I am no
Oh my god.
tree.
Even better. Names that don't work. Number 1. Adolf. Which is good.
That everything associated with Adolf Hitler is like right up there on top of the list of things that were actually not that bad that one person ruined for everybody. The name
Adolf was a fine name.
the name Adolf, that mustache that Charlie Chaplin totally had first.
Yeah. And that Michael Jordan then had third.
Wait, what?
Yeah, do you see that? Like
No.
Michael Jordan for a while had like that really narrow mustache when he was doing like Hanes commercials, and he got all kinds of crap for it. I gotta look this up real quick. Let me get rid of this
He
tab
also
of Benicio del Toro.
ruined that haircut for everybody, though to be fair, it's not a very flattering haircut.
What haircut? Oh, wait, what? The Hitler. I thought you meant
Hitler.
I thought you meant Michael Jordan's haircut. I'd be
Hitler
like,
haircut.
what?
No,
Bald?
Michael Jordan just ruined everybody's
are you looking
childhood
for?
by starring in Space Jam and then turning out to be a terrible person.
I feel like this has got to be real, or I'm going crazy. Yeah, the Michael Jordan Hitler mustache, which is a problem because you Google it and immediately it's Hitler mustache. So let me get this picture real big to show over to Static.
Oh no!
It's real.
No, he didn't.
It's real, baby. He showed up in Hanes commercials. This dude was on television with because exactly to that point, it's crap to call it a Hitler mustache. Because it should, the fact that Hitler still owns that sort of mind share in our culture is Hitler winning over us. I think we ought to reclaim the mustache.
Okay, I have nothing to say to that.
If anything, just to take cultural power away from Hitler.
I mean,
Because somewhere some neo-Nazi dudes just be like, I have an idea. Give me that razor. And they get a Hitler mustache because they're not original, and then they go be neo-Nazis. So we can take that away from them, make that just normal mustache.
Hitler was the perpetrator of one of the worst cultural events in human history to date. Worst in recorded history to date. That leaves an impact. And we have a lot of people who are still descended from survivors, and some survivors are still alive. I mean, it may very well be one day Hitler will be an irrelevant, name in history, but Hitler is still very relevant in terms of the impact is still felt today.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to
trivialize
the lasting impact of the Holocaust.
It's not. I don't think it's that simple.
Oh no, it's never that simple. I'm just goofing. I'm just goofing about a mustache.
Also, it looks so bad. Like I watched a movie in
It's not
Eastern
great.
European film, and like the main character had that mustache. I'm like, oh my god, it looks like you just got a little something. You can like clean it up. Like it's a very hard mustache to pull off because it's like if it's too thin or if it's too flat, it just looks filthy.
Yeah. Okay, so to get away from a Hitler mustache talk, I'm going to keep going on the Fallout 4 names that don't work.
Okay.
Because this is, I think, even funnier. So Adolf is not allowed in the world of Fallout 4. Neither is Anakin.
Okay.
Callbacks. Barbara is out, which is kind of mean to Barbara's. Brandon is out. Take that, Brandon. Kaisar or Caesar. That one's not in there.
That one's actually surprising.
Chuck is not in there, which is crap, I think. Clem is not in there, and one of my comic character favorites is Clem. Let's see. No Dale, so you can't play as Dale Gribble from King of the Hill with his pocket sand.
I was never able to get into that show.
Nobody was. You watch like 2 episodes of it when you're drunk and Adult Swim is going on, and you're just like,
Really?
what's
'Cause
up with
one of
Mike
my
Judge? Who
friends-
makes
one
this?
of my friends back home loved that show.
You got to be on a certain level of internet aesthetic to like really get into King of the Hill, and I've known people that have, and that's fantastic.
Internet aesthetic.
Internet aesthetic. It's my post-ironic Tumblr people friends, and they do get really into it, and they like really like.
Ironic? What is post-ironic? What happens after irony?
I don't know, dude. It's hard. Okay.
That's the garbage zone right there. After irony.
We talked about Gravity Falls for a while.
Yeah.
On which
that show.
the one of the main antagonists is a boy named Gideon, based off of like a child televangelist preacher. Gideon is not allowed in Fallout 4. Neither is Giovanni, the antagonist to the original Pokemon. Let's see.
The original leader.
Oh, there's no Heisenberg for you goddamn
I was never able to get into
Breaking Bad
either.
cosplayers. For your Breaking Bad, you can't do Breaking Bad roleplay. I bet they don't have those hats or the sunglasses or the mustaches in Fallout 4, so you can't be Heisenberg.
I was never able to get into Breaking Bad. I watched partway through season 2, and I couldn't do it anymore.
I watched all through it.
Did you like it?
I did.
I don't know. Cause like, it's just watching it is like watching a train wreck in slow motion. It's just a string of poor judgment calls and bad people doing bad things to other bad people, but also sometimes some not bad people.
There's no Kyle in Fallout 4. It's a pretty common name. There's no Cora, for all of you dudes wanting to play some Avatar roleplay. Now, are we gonna segue into Breaking Bad talk?
I mean, I can't talk much about it because I only watched.
I mean, it
like,
can't
the
either
first
because
season.
that was a long time ago I watched it and I wasn't even like really cognizant for it.
Have you watched Daredevil?
Yeah.
I love Daredevil.
Dude, I wanna play a drinking. I wanna
next
play.
week today, Jessica Jones.
That is a Marvel
Yes,
Comics lady
that's
doing
the one I
something
told you-
else.
that's
That
the one I told you
yeah,
about, right?
you told me
The
about
one
that.
where
It's another
she had a
Netflix
brief-
series. We
yeah,
have
she had a brief superhero career, and
we got to contextualize this. This is a Netflix series coming out from a Marvel, like in the same way as Daredevil and The Flash and Gotham and other crap.
Yeah.
Superhero shows have been on.
Yeah. And Jessica Jones was a superhero very briefly, and she ran into the Purple Man, who I don't think will be called the Purple Man in the series, but they will be using a lot of purple as I guess just as a call out to the comic book fans.
Yeah, as a general motif.
But if you've seen any of the trailers, there's a lot of purple. But his power is mind control, and he like mind controlled the crap out of her, and she got like a weird Stockholm syndrome sort of dealio, and sexual assault is heavily implied and referenced at points. And when she finally is away from him long enough to break free of his control, when he sends her to like either kill the Avengers or be killed, she breaks free and she's like, I am done being a superhero. I'm just gonna be a detective who happens to have superpowers. Also, I drink heavily to cope with all the horrible things that happen to me.
So do you think they're gonna like really address?
You need to watch the trailers. They absolutely do.
Think they're gonna address like being a rape survivor?
I think not exclusively, but they will. I think watch the trailers. I can't really articulate it very well for some reason, but there's definitely,
I will watch the trailers. I am
there's
interested
definitely
in that.
Some really hardcore stuff touched on there.
Because I've seen like glimmers, like individual pages or like a couple panels at a time of the Purple Man and like what he's done in the comics, and it is extremely dark.
Oh yeah, the Purple Man, he's been played off for laughs in some comics, but in other comics he's been used very effectively as like a very dark, like an exploration of like darker themes in superhero comics.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Great, check that out on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm
coming soon.
I'm really hyped.
When is that at?
Next week, the November 17th, I believe.
So in terms of streaming stuff and streaming like whole seasons at a time, like, because I literally just watched all of Aziz Ansari's Master of None.
Oh, same.
Which is so good, and we'll talk about that next.
Except for a couple episodes were kind of like awkward and weird.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that next. But like, I came up with this idea that I think, I mean, I don't know. Like, we're in the age of the binge watch and stuff, and there's certain levels where I'm like, this is good. I want to consume all of this narrative all at once. At the same time, it like.
And there are ones where it's like, this is good. I need to stop and process this.
Yeah, and as opposed to like weekly syndication on a television where you get one new episode a week.
Yeah.
And then you have to wait and you have to anticipate the next one, especially on shows that leave you on a cliffhanger, like Breaking Bad. Every episode was a cliffhanger.
And there's also like my big thing with, especially the superhero stories, like binge watching them or like Netflix format, is that it allows you to tell a really solid but also down-to-earth superhero story. Whereas you get shows like Arrow, or even Smallville way back in the day, or The Flash, where they keep it going with this soap opera invented like drama nonsense that really just drives me up a wall, where it's like you know, really
it's the
poor
same thing
decision
about like
making, or like the kind of stuff where it's like, if you had made a phone call, like one phone call would have solved this whole situation.
Yeah.
Or like, if you had just told this one person like what was going on, all of this could have been avoided, like stuff like that.
It's exactly the kind of thing I always complain about, like certain superhero cartoons, like, or something where they've got to have that like human element of like the dude's in high school or something. So it's like always like, oh, the neurotoxin's about to get released into the whole city and kill everybody, and promise tomorrow. And it's just like, okay.
That's usually more of a comedy thing now, but yeah.
Yeah, to put that soap opera, like this, like personal drama or like relationship drama inside of it or something. And every time I'm watching one of these things and the superhero like is trying to maintain their secret identity, and then like, oh, and then this love interest comes along, and I'm just like, okay, I mean, what? Like, I've blown off girls before, and I don't have a secret identity that could get them killed.
Oh my god, speaking of blowing off girls, I'm an idiot.
Okay.
I had one of those. Have you ever had a moment where you leave a party and a friend literally like slaps you upside the head? He's like, dude, that girl was hitting on you all night. And I'm like,
I have a pin in the thing that I was talking about earlier, but let's do this. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I went to a party last weekend, and some girl just comes up to me and she's like, hi, this is my name. I don't even remember her name. And I was like,
Hi.
oh, I'm
Static.
I'm Static, yeah.
And she's like, that's a weird name.
And I was like, I didn't say anything to you. She's like, yeah, but you look familiar. I see you around a lot. I was like, oh,
Really?
I don't,
Are you in my bedroom most of the time?
No, I was like, no, I don't recognize you. I'm not aware of my surroundings most of the day. And then I just walked away, and she was just like hanging around in my general vicinity and talking to me from time to time. And then like I left, and it was just like, you're an idiot, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. And then like the next day I was like, I'm an idiot.
And that's
she was moderately attractive.
Oh, that's a great way to start. Just be like, yeah, she's moderately attractive.
Is that a mean thing to say?
I mean, it's not flattering.
Really? I didn't say she's unattractive.
Okay, apparently neither of us know who this person is, so I guess it doesn't matter. But it is sort of just like, oh, like it was this girl that I totally would have been interested in, but I wasn't picking up the signals, and she was moderately attractive.
I don't know. That's my very non-committal way of saying that they were.
It is neutral. It's not negative. It's not positive. But in this context, if you're not setting it to positive, then
I guess I've just been conditioned to be very cautious with like compliments and like displays of interest, because it's very easy, especially on a small campus, to get that like creep label slapped on you if you're like, if you're interpreted as showing affection, or if you do like show affection or intention like to somebody who's maybe not, into it.
Well, I think the creep label comes with that if you are relentless about it. Anyway, but I know exactly what you're talking about and not picking up. Sorry, I was about to go off somewhere else. I know exactly what you're talking about and like not picking up the signals or something, and then in retrospect it's just like, what are you doing? You should have like talked or like gone and made a move, and like it was totally there. Because I literally the other day had a friend of mine was like in the station, and we were all hanging out. We were just hanging out in the other room there, just chilling, how we do. And the guy friend of mine was giving a lady friend of his a back massage, and it was like, you know, a good back massage based on her reaction.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and
Should
then like
you
the
leave?
whole, and then it was just like the whole rest of the day, or the whole next day, he was talking about like, I don't know, man, what are the signals? And we're just like, you gave her a back massage, dude. She was into it. Or
I
what
have
are you?
one even worse than that. When I was in high school, I was at like, you know how sometimes the school will show you a movie and like a have all the students in a room and show a movie.
Yeah.
And like we had
Yeah.
an auditorium, and so they showed a movie. I was sitting next to this girl. We had like, I don't know, like that weird immature high school like flirtationship, I guess you should call it. But I didn't, you know, I was just being goofy.
Yeah.
But I guess, but you know, she does like this thing, and she like butts her head under my shoulder. So I'm like, oh wow, this is weird. And so I like lift my arm up, and she just like grabs it and puts it like, you know, around. And, you know, her head's resting on my shoulder, and I'm just kind of like a little weirded out, not sure what's going on. I'm sitting there, I sit through the whole movie like this, and like you know, she starts talking to me, and her face is like this far away from mine. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me.
No, hold on.
And, and I do nothing. And then as we're leaving, she was like, I really thought you were gonna kiss me back there. Again, like as we're walking out, her face is right here.
You thought.
And I was just like, oh, didn't think of that. And I just walked off. And then a week, not even the next day, a week later, it clicked. And I was like,
Struck by lightning.
I need to remove myself from society.
So we're gonna take a break real quick, but I wanted to leave you on this song where it is. This is a song by the Employees, and it's. I thought this was relevant because when you are faced with an interaction like that and you get really strong signals, what you have to do with those signals is pick it up. Hey, how'd you like that dead air following the Employees? Pick it up. So, this is the Power 92.3 WKVR. I'm Jdox. I'm here with the Static. We do our fun little friends show every Saturday or Tuesday. Tuesday.
Yes, Tuesday.
Let me get my time back up. Let me resynchronize with this time frame because I've been, jumping back.
The brain.
I've been jumping back and forth between a couple different parallel universes and timelines this last week, so I got to get back on. You got that.
You've been playing Life is Strange.
You got that dimension lag.
You've been playing Life is Strange.
Let me reset Audacity real quick.
Life is Strange?
Life is strange.
No, did you ask if that game costs money?
Does it cost money?
Yes.
Okay.
Like most things.
That's one of those episodic, narrative-based.
I'm really tired of episodic gameplay.
I haven't experienced it. I never played that Walking Dead game. I never played the Wolves Among Us. I've never played whatever the other ones are.
Yeah, I just wish you.
Oh
could,
no, I've played Kentucky Route Zero.
I just wish.
I love Kentucky Route Zero.
I just want the whole game. I just want the whole game.
So wait until all of it gets released and then just buy the pack.
I mean, I've done that with some of them.
Yeah.
But like, it's still it's annoying because from a development side, it's lazy.
I'm always hesitant to say that anything about game design is laziness.
It's not lazy. It's.
I mean, maybe that's part of the.
It allows them to put a lot more detail in a smaller slice of content.
And then release it piece by piece by piece. And this started out with The Walking Dead was what kicked off a lot of the episodic content surge has been going, especially with these Telltale games. And it's because Walking Dead was, has been like the best, most highly like crazy everyone watches it show since like MASH, which everyone in the country watched MASH down in the 60s.
I stopped watching The Walking Dead.
I never watched any of it.
Season 2 just lost me. And then the twist at the end of Season 2, I was just like, I threw my hands up in the air and said, I'm out.
So it's really curious, though, that the video games are taking on the elements of these different media, like television, where it's released in episodes. And those will be like 5 episodes of like content of that, could take you like, 5-6 hours for an episode of Walking Dead? I'm not sure.
No.
Okay.
Like 2. That's why I'm saying I really don't like episodic, because it's usually very short, and now not when they originally did episodic content with the Walking Dead games, the episodes came a lot faster. Like usually every month, every other month. It's not that anymore. It's like 2 hours every few months, and it's just really, I don't think it's suited to a good narrative, just in the sense because you have such a small amount of gameplay, and then you have to remember that for the next small amount of gameplay, and it sort of snowballs.
Yeah.
On top of that, there's
Does it do a previously on?
Sort of. On top of that, there's also passing the data from episode to episode will occasionally get wonky if you're like first on the episode, because
So when you gave someone a mean sneer, maybe they don't remember that mean sneer, and you think like, are they acting nicer to me because they're just nice, or do they forget my sneer?
What can happen is it can remember a choice wrong, or it can pass the data of the choices wrong, and so it messes things up. And it wouldn't really do that as much if you were just one continuous thing.
My only association, I guess, of this would be in Mass Effect when it remembers which crew members have died. And guess which of my crew members died, Dave?
Garrus.
None of them.
None of them?
Sorry, I called you. You're static. None of them, because I'm a good commander. So, I mean, it's definitely, to make an episodic game is an interesting thing. I've loved it with Kentucky Route Zero, which is a fantastic, like, middle American surrealist experiment. Like, it's a great experience. Look up Kentucky Route Zero. It's a beautiful game. Full of really interesting, fascinating, like, surrealism.
Yeah.
But to take something from a episodic approach, you're saying this doesn't well suit video games as a medium as compared to television in regards to especially the production cycle of it, which takes a lot more work for video games.
It's not as suited. And also, it worked a bit better for the original Walking Dead game because it was more of a point-and-click adventure game with narrative moments, with narrative elements, whereas now Telltale games and games that follow suit are really just kind of cinematic experiences. So they go quickly. Ish in game terms, because 2 hours would not be considered quickly, but in game terms that's quick.
And to branch off from this a little bit, a lot of games I've found actually are really well experienced from a different approach than of playing them. If you watch a let's play of it, or if you there is a subreddit called like Games the Movie, which says like the game that like Batman Arkham Asylum, the game, the movie, where it strings together cutscenes and important plot bits in the game so that you can just sit back and watch like a 3 to 4 hour run through of the game and you get all of the story behind it, which I would absolutely totally do for something like Wolves Among Us or
for one of those games,
The Walking Dead.
But I don't think that's necessarily suited to all games.
No, absolutely not. But
because there are some good games out there where the narrative is really driven home by gameplay.
But what I'm saying is, like, theoretically, if The Walking Dead, like, if Telltale Games released The Walking Dead as the episodic games, or then as a cinematic go through of it, which has it takes away the sort of player choice element or something where you then have to like watch like certain decisions get made, but you get to take that in. Say, if there was just a straight good route or a straight bad route to the game, you could like watch different versions of it. But then they sell those as like movies or something, maybe like, $2 a pop.
Perhaps.
Just downloads to just watch the game, get the story, not have to play it, not have to do it episodically. Who knows? Oh, we were talking about Life is Strange, though. That's how we got started on this, and that was the.
Have you played it? Watched it?
No, let's give some context for the people.
I mean, it's an episodic game. It's I'm trying to remember the developer. I don't.
It seems, from what I've understood of it, it seems to be about a young woman
with time travel powers.
Oh, really? Oh, well, I didn't know that. Okay, so
I mean,
big element there, time travel powers.
That's not a spoiler. That's like the first minute of the game.
Nah, I feel
you
it.
literally wake up in the middle of class and find out you have the ability to rewind time.
Hey, why not?
And it actually gets really interesting with the like exploration of like choice and
The idea of free will or fate or
the
stuff like
butterfly
that.
effect.
Yeah.
And it actually, I want to play it because I watched a full LP of it.
Let's
And
play.
it's definitely like, I think playing it would bring a lot of impact because honestly, a lot of what I watched, it's very impactful. And it's one of the few narrative-driven games, I would say, I think they actually did the episodic style well. Because there was a lot of content in each episode.
And I think thematically, because all of these telltale episodic, like point and click sort of, choice narrative driven games have had like, Jimmy will remember that. Like that'll affect you way down the line. So a game that focuses thematically on the butterfly effect, that any decision you have has
It's very
unfolding
well-suited.
myriad
Yes.
branching consequences in the future, is very well suited to that sort of form of medium.
You should get it on sale. It'll probably run on your laptop.
Oh, I'm
but
sure.
Because
It's not, it's no Fallout
explores-
4.
Thematically, I don't know that it's super like. I don't think it would touch on any of those cultural things you love to talk about, but and to be quite honest, the voice acting is superb, but the writing is not.
Okay.
Like there's some very much like there are lines delivered where you're like, wow, these are like 50-year-olds trying to be like 18-year-olds, where they're like,
Hello, fellow dudes.
like no, they're like, oh, that's hella cool, and I'm like,
Oh, hella.
my stomach wants
Do they
to
say
jump out of my-
hella in this game?
Oh, so much.
Wow.
So much. Way too much.
Dude.
Or they'll say for reals a lot. It's like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's real bad. Like, the adult speak is so bad.
Epic lulls. I can't have cheeseburger.
I actually think there's a moment like that in the game as well.
Oh, God.
But it gets increasingly trippy as the game goes on.
Great.
And
I've seen
it's really good.
pretty much all I've seen of it was a trailer in which there is a lot of very serious youth drama, a lot of heavy emotions flying around, and then a certain video. I think it was by Nick Robinson might have posted this video, but it was of him playing it, and there was a scene in which a dude was like painting a wall or something, and he was up on a ladder, and like he was about to fall off of the ladder or something, and it's in slow motion, and you can do something with your time travel powers to like prevent it. But whoever was playing, probably Nick Robinson, was like literally just didn't do anything, and for 5 laborious minutes you see this elderly gentleman fall off of a ladder.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a good game. It's one of those games that succeeds despite the writing. Honestly, it's one of those things that like it suffers from the kind of thing that I would say that like my problem is with writing, where I can make a good plot, but I cannot characterize very well, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Like I can't write interactions between characters, but I can plot out like a story arc. That's pretty reasonable.
Okay.
In my own writing exercises.
So these characters, because they're like high school kids or something, are these characters in a way that you don't like them, or characters in a way that they're not deeply or interestingly characterized? Because some of my favorite characters have been really intentionally written unlikable characters. They're written really to just be not like necessarily villains, but just like shit hats.
They're written well,
especially protagonists,
despite of their writing. Like if this was a movie, it would be bad. But because it's a game, you get a lot of good character moments and character development. But because the dialogue can be so bad and stilted, unfortunately the game suffers because of that. But there are moments that shine through because of the choice aspect, because you are shaping the characters.
All right.
And it's really good. You should check it out. But I mean, yeah, time travel's a big deal. A butterfly effect is a big deal. Literally, actually, because and this might spoil you a little bit.
Spoil me.
Not like.
Oh, how you spoiled me, Static.
Not on plot points, but on like thematically.
All right.
Because in the first episode you have a vision of a tornado, and then the first time you alter the timeline, you see a blue butterfly.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, so
I
it
don't know.
literally
It's-
explains the butterfly
it
effect
doesn't,
theme?
It doesn't explain it, but you can see that there if you're really looking like with an analytic eye, which I was not until I saw it all the way through.
Yeah, if I had seen it through twice, the second time I would have just been like, oh, there's a butterfly and a tornado. I get it. Time travel and affecting things in the future. There we go.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Speaking of young women with crazy reality warping powers and narrative driven games, what was that one that was like Ellen Page Simulator?
Oh.
It was like Last Hope, Last Dreams of Beyond Two Souls.
Beyond Two Souls. I hate David Cage though. I hate his games.
Really?
They're so bad.
What other games has David Cage done?
Heavy Rain and Fahrenheit.
Oh, Indigo Prophecy.
Indigo Prophecy. Yes. Why did I think of Fahrenheit?
I think Fahrenheit was like a subtext. When they re-released it, it was called like Fahrenheit
I
451 or something.
don't like any of those games. They're just.
I love
The problem
Heavy
is, and this
Rain.
goes back to I think where we differ on our opinions on writing.
Yeah.
They're just too heavy-handed, and they're just they kind of get lost in themselves. It's a, it gets lost in itself. I already said that, but it's just it's pretentious. They're pretentious writing, and it's a game like Life is Strange succeeds despite its writing because it just takes what it wants to do and it just puts it there for the audience to take in and interpret on its own. Games like Heavy Rain and Indigo Prophecy and Beyond Two Souls, they feed it to you.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean. I love Heavy Rain.
And that's also like a problem I have with like, overly political comics and stuff in general, where it's like you can make a message without feeding it to your audience. And like there's a good way to touch themes and there's a bad way. Good touch, bad touch, ha ha ha. But yeah, I shouldn't have done that. But I think when you're writing something, and I'm not the best writer in the world, so maybe I shouldn't be speaking, but you need to have a certain level of respect for your audience, that they don't need to be spoon-fed.
Yeah. But at the same point, I don't know, like, in this hypothetical scenario, I don't know the entirety of their audience. Like, maybe there are some people. I like to think I'm savvy. I have sort of, like, a little bit of a media analysis
here's the
background. I
thing.
understand
Here's the
stuff.
thing. If the audience doesn't get it, they don't get it. Your writing should be good without that.
Okay.
If they don't get the themes you're touching, that's fine. If it's a good story, it's a good story. That's a bonus. That elevates it from a good story to a great story, if you get what I'm saying. But by spoon feeding, you're taking what could have been a great story and reducing it to not even either a good story or a mediocre story.
I would argue that it's to the creative license of the creators, like what level of comprehension, what level or levels of comprehension they want to cater to.
Oh, it absolutely is. I'm just saying, to me, I that's what I think defines,
I know. Yeah, I know what you mean. If I'm starting something up and like 10 minutes in, I'm like, okay, I get it. All right, where are we? So here's the concept. Where are we taking it?
Yeah.
Is the idea.
Well, like, okay, here's an example with comics. You were talking to me about a comic where the new Captain America was fighting, like, superhero racists.
Yeah.
And they were super heavy-handed with it because they were, like, anti-immigration, and Captain America is now super liberal and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to comment on the politics of it because it's irrelevant to me. It's saying what it's got to say, and it's out there.
Yeah.
But, and I'm very pro-immigration, but I don't know why I felt the need to say that, but
that can be a very controversial opinion in America nowadays.
I guess it is. Well, especially considering I grew up in Texas.
Oh,
but,
great time to point out. Opinions expressed on 92.3 WKVR do not represent that of the station or of Juniata College. This is all personal stuff between the static and I that we are talking about.
But like, it's dealing with xenophobia in a very explicit way.
Yeah.
It's saying immigrants are bad, and then they get punched.
Okay. That is the way
it's depicted.
It.
But then you have like late 90s, early aughts X-Men comics. They were very well-written stories about individuals and their struggles. And they touched on those themes, but they never had anyone straight up say, these people are bad because of reasons, and now I'm going to get punched because I am a bad person.
Have you read these new Captain America comics with the xenophobia villains?
No, I've not. I'm just using the example you gave me.
Me neither. So, like, I don't know
Honestly,
how subtly...
I've gotten out of, much like you, I've gotten out of Cape Comics.
Exactly. So
Unless
I've only read the analysis that says that these villains represent this and this certain mentality in politics. So I don't know how how explicitly they state that in the comics.
Unless I see something that's like, this series is really good and you can read it on its own, like it's a complete run, you know?
Yeah.
There's a beginning and an end. I won't read it at this point. Like I told you about one that you should read, that's piqued my interest. I've read a few issues of it. That's what is it? Angela as Guardian Assassin, and it's very good. It's about a long lost sister of Loki and Thor who was raised by angels. Hence,
that sounds fake.
Hence Angela. Well, it's written in a way that like you're like, okay, you're testing my suspension of disbelief here, but they do make it work.
Yeah.
And in very early on, she encounters an angel, and it's very interesting because in this mythos, male angels are monks. They do nothing but pray. They are completely nonviolent pacifists. Female angels, however, are the Valkyries. They're the warriors. They fight and they bring dead soldiers, to their resting place. And she very early on encounters a male angel who says at one point, I am not this. This is not me. And they, magic powers and whatnot change him into a female angel. And he's like, they simply, it's done in one page, and they're like, she made me myself. And that's it. And it's very good.
Okay, so I'm rewinding a bit in my brain. I'm trying to comprehend this. You're saying there was an immediate moment of deific transgender?
I don't know what that means. Deific.
Deific in regards to deity.
Deities.
Or
yes. It's a trans character, straight up. They don't, go out of their way to go, trans character, blah blah blah, trans. But, it's just dealt with at face value. Very well, in my opinion.
Well.
And I think that's good writing. I think, and I that's what I like about Steven Universe as well, is it just deals with these non-conventional relationships just at face value. They're just there.
So
it's just normal. That is how it is. Ruby and Sapphire love each other, and they are Garnet. Or Steven has 3 moms, and also is his mom.
And it's lampshaded a bit, but it's never particularly spotlighted on.
Right,
and
that's what I'm saying. I think that is, in my opinion, the best way to go about touching on, especially controversial themes, to go about touching on, more nuanced things. Just, it is what it is. I don't need to spoon feed it to you. I don't need to make a big deal out of it because it is there, and this is how I choose to portray this issue.
And so, this is something that's come up a couple times on the Slouch, as we've talked about it. And I agree with that in a lot of ways, that to normalize something in the culture, especially through media representation, for something like genderqueer, sexuality queer stuff, transgender people's broader representation of different ethnicities and, cultures and everything, that I'm totally about that, especially and normalizing it in the culture, making it, better represented. But a thing we've encountered on here is the idea that it can be overdone, and what I've heard a lot thrown around is the idea of forced diversity, or you said diversity for diversity's sake, and that
I would call it empty diversity, where a character is reduced to their labels.
Oh, if it's a stereotypical representation.
I'm not talking about a stereotypical, but that character is just this. Ruby and Sapphire and Garnet, by extension, are interesting because they are, pardon the gem pun, multifaceted characters who
Wow.
who happen
Oh my god, I can't. Oh.
who happen to be, I guess, the space rock equivalent of lesbians. The
I can't pardon that pun. I can't do it.
The homeworld equivalent of lesbians in a society where fusion is clearly not meant to be an act of love.
You're killing me on this one. Multifaceted. You're right.
But
I am following your.
They are more than that. They are more than, I guess, a representative of lesbians. They are.
And that's good. And that's good
complex characters
representation.
in their own right.
If there was an episode where Ruby and Sapphire are like literally confronted on that, about like hypothetically if Steven Universe took a left turn, where if they're directly confronted by the citizens of Beach City who are supposedly like now homophobic, when Garnet gets separated for some reason, and then it becomes like this is like. So you have the sort of like, this is the conflict of these fused gems in, the gem homeworld culture, and that's all fusion, that's whatever. But then like, okay, now let's reflect this onto American human culture that, in a lot of cases stigmatizes homosexuality. And if that's the theme of some episode, is that too heavy-handed?
I mean, honestly, it all boils down to the writing, because it can be done well. I mean, it was done well in the episode with Peridot where they went to the kindergarten. I mean, she straight up was like, "Your fusing makes me uncomfortable. Please stop it." And Garnet was like, "No, I do what I want. I'm going to tie you to this post."
Very rude to tie you to a post.
And then later, in a later scene, Peridot's like, "I don't get it. It's weird. It's gross. They're literally just... They're not even fighting or anything. They're just..." And then she makes like a crude gesture with her hands that's somehow family friendly. And if you saw the episode, you'd know what I mean.
Yeah.
And she does the same thing when it's also dealt very well when she deals with like that episode also deals with making light of disabilities. She's making fun of how Amethyst is quote unquote overdone, or a defect, that she's too small, but she
amethysts.
Can do everything a proper quartz can.
Is that
and
right?
she freaks out.
Yeah. Because that is
it's
a very
dealt with just at face value. It's not. It's very subtle, but it's clear enough that an intelligent viewer understands what's going on.
And hopefully, there's a lot of positive messages in this kind of stuff, and a lot of positive like reactions and ideas going on in this material that a child who is not taking this in at an intellectual level is getting some, healthier enculturing into their brain during developmental stages. But something we've talked about on the show is like and I have a little bit of material that I found on this, is the idea of like forced or overdone diversity, and the idea of also, with your representation being skewed definitely a certain heavy way to...
I don't think there's such a thing as overdone diversity unless you mean it in a specific way. Because, like, varied characters, like, more varied characters, how can that be a bad thing? But I think diversity for diversity's sake, or, like, making a character that is just this, I would say that's bad.
The problem is, there's two solid ideas. I'm not gonna get it.
Yep.
So the one idea is, okay, so the media definitely skews a certain way, where there's like no representation here, there's no representation there, because the media has like some sort of cynical viewpoint of like, this doesn't sell, that doesn't sell, this representation like is not going to reach as many people as you want to for profit margins or something. So the reaction to that is to say like, okay, well now we will create the space where different diversity can occur. We can have different sorts of representation, and like ethnic or sexual or gender representative, interpretations of characters can take place. But so you want to go off and you want to, I mean, as we've talked about, like, you want to make Thor a woman, you want to make Captain America black.
I was going to talk about the Thor woman, because I actually read those.
And you've made the point where, so, like, Thor is a dude, Captain America is white, so to expand into new characters with that representation instead of putting that onto it's older like icons.
Creative creation versus destructive creation. Basically breaking something that already exists to make something new versus making something new. Because I would say in the comic books market, there's so much stagnation that people who actually read comics, they'd be willing to read a new thing.
Which is why it's tending so great to new ideas and new representation.
It really is now, but that's a whole nother issue. But I was going to say, the only really gripe I have with Marvel's new, I guess, diversity initiative, because it's very clearly, an agenda, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because you're giving me a look, but
the agenda is definitely a certain association in my brain.
To get more varied representation. And, I read some of the new Miss Marvel, very well written. I read some of the new... I read Miles Morales, and I was originally very skeptical when I saw, the description, half black, half Latino, Peter Parker dies. I was like, oh, I love Peter Parker. Blah, 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 blah. He grew on me. Good character, well written. My problem with the female Thor is this. It's not well written. It's very heavy-handed in that... Are you ever going to read it?
No.
So it recently came out that the
I'm
person
not.
who picked up the hammer was Jane Foster.
Sounds like an ice cream.
It's Thor's ex-girlfriend.
Okay. Natalie Portman? Mm-hmm. Wow, okay. No, I'm down for that. That sounds cool.
Well, it's not, because here's why. First of all, he gives her the name Thor, which is his actual name. It's not a title, it's his name. Which is weird to me, but I can look. I could look past that.
Is Jane Foster's now named Thor Odin's son?
Well, no. The big deal was because in the first several
Full
issues, you didn't know who it was. They didn't tell you. It was just some woman is now Thor.
Okay,
But
so I know what you mean. That Captain America's a mantle, Spider-Man is a mantle, Thor is more of just an individual.
It's a person, but. You know what? I can accept the powers of Thor being passed on through the hammer because it's happened before. Beta Ray Bill, one good example.
Beta Ray Bill.
Look him up.
That sounds like a dude who sells electronics.
Well, Beta Ray Bill was actually, a writer was like, well, the inscription says whosoever holds this hammer is worthy. So what happens if someone else is worthy? That was the whole thing.
Well, then Thor is the hammer.
No, because he didn't take the name Thor. He was still Beta Ray Bill. He just had Thor's powers and costume.
Oh, Beta Ray Bill is like a horse.
Yeah, he's an alien.
What is? Oh my god. He's got a snout.
He's got a weird face.
So literally Thor was a furry before Thor was a woman.
But here's the thing.
Think about that.
No, there was... Jane Foster actually picked up the hammer before. She gave herself a different name.
What a scary horse, man.
She called herself Thordis or something. It was really dumb. But what bugs me is the first several issues just went on and on and on about how much better she is than the original Thor and how men... And I kid you not, it actually goes on about how, Odin has become terrible and Freya is, this wise woman and, all men are bad. And there's actually lines in the comic that suggest this, that, men are cowardly and, violent and blah, blah, blah. And that...
Yeah, they did that all the time in Wonder Woman.
Yes, but that's Wonder Woman's shtick.
I would say that's Wonder Woman's ethos.
Remind me what ethos means?
I don't know.
Then don't use it. No, you're right. And I would say those aren't the best of Wonder Woman either. The new 52 Wonder Woman was actually very interesting because it took a very mythological writing slant with her, with her stories. But... what was I getting at? The first few issues of the new Thor, all she was a woman. That's it. There was nothing else about her
that
they talked about. Just that she was a woman, and that she was somehow better and more powerful than the actual Thor. And it was just so heavy-handed. And there's a character called Titania who faces off with She-Hulk a lot because her thing is she is obsessed with being the strongest woman ever.
Yeah, I think I heard of her before.
She fights for fighting's sake to be the strongest. And she literally knocks herself out because she's like, oh, gotta respect another woman fighting crime. And it's like, you've literally broken a character to make your message. I don't know. To me, that was bad writing. But to Marvel's credit, I think that was the only one that was handled that poorly.
So what I was trying to get to with all of this, and you made a lot of good points there, there's these two mentalities. On their own, work fine. Where to improve on representation in the media, you want to not take over the sort of established stuff. Instead, you want to move in new directions into new spaces.
Well, because there's also
with
a bit of a
representation.
subtle message there that you need to, take. I don't know how to articulate this properly. Maybe you can help, but you can't be anything meaningful without filling the shoes of to put it in diversity terms, without filling the shoes of a straight white guy or a straight white woman.
That's true. That has a bigger
If you're bigger
impact if you're injecting representation into a renowned icon such as Captain America or Thor.
Right, because I fully believe there's room
Or
for new characters to
Spider-Man.
stand on their own merits. I mean, Static Shock is a massively underappreciated character.
Oh, totally underrated. I love Static
And-
Shock. Anyway, but this clashes. It doesn't clash necessarily. It doesn't clash, but combined together, it can have a dangerous effect, which is the idea of forced diversity or forced representation in the new spaces that people who want new diversity away from the mainstream stuff seek to create. And there was this.
And also by replacing characters people know with these diversity themed characters. Wow, that was a terrible way to put it, but whatever, I said it.
Diversity-themed characters, that is a terrible way to say
it. You get
it.
backlash, is what I'm saying, when you take out these characters people have
Yeah.
grown up with.
Because it takes a lot more effort to normalize that, to make that acceptable.
Right, rather than to present a new character and say, this is a good character.
Yeah. So.
But you said there's another school of thought.
So what I drew this back to was a Tumblr post that was, this supposed volley where the dorks say, if you want more representation in games and comics, then make your own. The marginalized dorks create media with strong female characters, LGBTQA plus leads, disabled characters, and diverse casts of people of color. To which the dorks then say, what is all this politically correct social justice feminazi stuff? Stop forcing diversity. And so that's the sort of dissonant problem between these two ideas.
To be fair, that's a straw man, but I think it goes back to good writing. If it's written well, who cares? That's me. That's my opinion. I know there are people who would be opposed to that on principle, and that's unfortunate.
If you understand, I appreciate good writing as much as the next guy. I was just literally talking about
That's a
bad
given.
stuff. When it comes to this stuff, when it comes to these new avenues of diversity and inclusion and representation being opened in these mediums, you have to be open to that. And as much as I don't think a lot of people notice, I think there is a certain double standard where if you're viewing it from a lens of, well, this is a certain character that is meant to represent a diversity, you're going to be more critical of it. You're going to be scrutinize the writing and the specifics of it more.
That's something I talked with a professor about recently, is that the's kind of a catch-22 when it comes to creating these characters.
That's what I'm talking about here.
And I hate to bring up Gamergate, but it was really researching Gamergate that I came across this. Both sides of the issue, which is, have you ever played Monkey Island? Because this was an example. It was literally a screenshot of a YouTube comment that was surprisingly on point. Well, you play as a guy called Guybrush Threepwood.
I love that name, Guybrush Threepwood.
You're kind of a bumbling
name.
idiot who somehow manages to save the day.
A real Jar Jar Binks.
Yes, basically.
Call back!
But they say there can be no Galbrush Threepwood to make it a female version because
Galbrush.
Because there is such a spotlight put on these characters that they would say, well, you can't portray a woman like an idiot, or you can't portray them like this or that. That it actually does become a bit of a political minefield, and it's a catch-22. And this is where the comment didn't go. It becomes a catch-22 because there are so few of these characters. So it's interesting because it's how do you win? What is the win condition for, removing the spotlight, for making it so that you can portray good and bad
simultaneously? Or
stuttering.
Good and bad?
Good and bad minority or diversity characters.
Yeah.
Like literally just shallow or bad people as these characters, because you have to admit, if someone were to take one of these characters and make them kind of look like a bad person, there would be a bit of an uproar about that, because of how few of these characters there are.
There's a problematic association if you want to cast a more diverse, if you want to cast some sort of diversity with an underrepresented like ethnicity or person as a villain or a goofy character not to be taken seriously,
not even
because
a villain,
that can,
but like a flawed hero. Like say the new Captain America had made a very bad decision or something, and he hurt a lot of people. You know, people would get upset. You know, something that exhibited a character flaw in this new Captain America.
it would be under a lot more scrutiny as a non-white Captain America than a white Captain America.
Thank you for picking up the slack. Yes.
Okay.
You get what I'm
Gotcha.
saying.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That's the double standard that this media comes under. Whether like if it's like a white guy as a character, they get a lot more passes on a lot of stuff than any other representation would.
Hold on. It's interesting you say that, because I think we're coming at this from two very different angles. Because I'm saying that what we want for these characters is to reach that status you're talking about, where you're saying you're coming from the opposite. It sounds like you're coming from the opposite direction, where you're saying like these people should not be given as many passes to be bad to have these character flaws, to be bad people, or to do bad things. Where I'm saying we should reach a point of where the spotlight is removed from these characters, in a sense that these diverse characters are allowed to do all the same things that these white characters can get away with and be bad people. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example of like a really flawed superhero, like
the Punisher, who kills all kinds of people all the time with big guns.
That's his thing, because it's really gritty and noir style. But like, I'm trying
I don't
to
know.
think
The
of a
Punisher is a
superhero.
very immoral hero.
That's a different thing, because that's going into the I guess
and
the
representations
idea
of violence in the media.
No, I was just the idea of an anti-hero.
Oh, like Punisher doesn't glorify extreme violence all the time.
Okay, let's not get on that, because we've tread that path.
Sure
I
have.
violently disagree. I don't violently disagree. I vehemently disagree. But
Good.
I'm trying to think of a hero that's really had like a moment where they did something wrong.
So
I cannot think.
What I would go to in this sort of thing is, with representation, there's got to be complexity and there's got to be multiplicity. So if you had any sort of
There
premise,
has to be more than one.
Exactly. And more than one have to be on different levels. They have to be complex in different ways. I mean, if you cast the villain as, say, a like person of a Middle Eastern ethnicity or cultural background, and the villain is a simple villain, that's lame. If that villain is a complex villain with, some sympathetic elements, some humanizing elements, some understandable elements, that's better. If you have a protagonist opposite that villain of the same background with a whole different personality, with a whole different set of everything about that character, then that is inherently diverse representation right there, where you're showing, like, you're representing the ethnicity or the group or the cultural demographic in multiple ways, which is inherently like not pigeonholing or stereotyping them, which is great.
Well, I was gonna say, I think we're actually gonna reach that point pretty soon, and it's not gonna be a gradual thing. It's going to be the damn bursts, because I think all these indie comics will make it big.
I can't wait.
In some capacity.
Yeah.
And they'll just all be out there, and it's like hiding yourself on the internet. There'll just be so many that it's hard to focus on one.
I already have a hard time focusing on anything.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then honestly, we will be allowed to be a bit regressive with our portrayals, because there's just so many, because we do have some. Every now and again, you'll see like, oh, this is the white supremacist supervillain, and he is a white supremacist, and that is it, and he dies. You get that sometimes, and that is never taken as like, oh, this reflects poorly on white people, except in certain circles on the internet. But I don't think people at large look at it that way.
It's a dent in the culture. It's not a big dent.
Well, it's not a dent. I wouldn't look at it that way. It's a dent in comics at large. Whereas these characters are so few and far in between that they are held very dearly. Not held dearly. They are scrutinized to the point where you cannot have that abstraction away from the the representation people are projecting onto it. Where, like, say we reach a point where there's such a saturation that you can get that pass, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You can have that terrible terrorist character, and people will say, well, that's the dumb terrorist villain, and he's irrelevant now, he's never coming back. Rather than people looking at that forever and saying, that is one of the few that we get. If that makes any sense.
I'm not sure I follow in that.
What do you not follow?
What are you saying would be the optimal instance of that sort of representation of a villain?
Well, it's honestly, I would still say it's bad writing, but what I'm saying is you can touch on when you reach a point where you can do stereotypes without reflecting poorly on the representation of the industry, you've reached a point where you're in a good place with representation. Like, there are so many white characters that you can have the neo-Nazi character or the hemo-goblin, and people won't hold that up as an example of discrimination against... Hold on, before you freak out. People won't hold that up as an example of, like, oh, this is straw-manning white people. This is a discrimination against white people, you know? You will reach that saturation point where they're like, oh, that's a dumb character, kind of lampooning a stereotype, as opposed to, this is a stereotype, and this is a representation of us, if that makes any sense.
I know exactly what you're talking about. First off, what an excellent callback to the very first episode of The Slouch, where we talked about the Hemogoblin, a racist, white supremacist vampire who spread AIDS, much like the CIA did. We might go get some food later.
I was gonna say, I can drive.
Okay,
My
great.
car works. We can
Okay.
But back on topic.
I can't drive.
I am aware.
But exactly what you're talking about. When there is a white villain who is this, like, caricature, everything wrong with white culture, whereas a white supremacist or a Nazi or some shit, but, like, with white supremacist culture, I don't know, that doesn't reflect on white people, because there's
so many.
There is a broad, diverse, diluted pool of all kinds of different characterizations of white people that it doesn't take up any chunk of, because
Right,
there's a lot of
in the lake.
There's diversity of characterization and personality and, you know, ethical whatever to white people, and when and I say this as in we gotta push it, there gets to that
I don't think
broad.
we have to push it. I think it's happening naturally.
It does. It happens.
Not in the mainstream, but I think the indie comics
I mean,
are
push
making
it.
their way.
I mean, push it as in, you know, be the change you want to see.
Well, obviously, like, there is merit to, if you want to see something, either support the people who do it or find a way to do it yourself.
That's why I love supporting this stuff. And my problem is in the idea that you've talked about in the past. Tie it all back.
Okay.
And the idea of forced diversity is that smacks to me of not supporting diverse representation.
Well,
If you put it under a lens of forced diversity or diversity for diversity's sake or diversity at the sacrifice of good writing.
Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, I just can't tolerate heavy-handed writing. That's really all it boils
I don't like
down
it
to.
either.
But you're right. You're right.
But if it's heavy-handed writing with something I believe in, with something I believe to be true and something that I want the representation to tend towards, because it is hard to break into the media and get the representation you want unless you are very forceful and powerful with it, and that does lead to heavy-handedness and some extreme directness. And I'm willing to.
It can lead to heavy-handedness.
And I'm willing to say if that's what it takes to get the representation right.
Depending on how you handle it. I mean, you're not entirely wrong. I can't.
And you're not entirely wrong, Static. That's why we're friends.
Yeah, honestly, I can't put up with it. It bothers me too much because I don't like being condescended to. That's really all it is. It's, you know, honestly, it might be a bit of arrogance on my part. I do not like being spoon-fed. I do not like being condescended to. I do not like being force-fed a message. I think if you have a message to say, it should speak for itself.
I think I totally agree with you 100% that I don't like being spoon-fed, but I think my goalposts are a little different to it.
No, and we've established that. You're willing to support that
if someone shows me,
at least it's there. Whereas I'm being a bit picky and choosy and saying I will support it if I think it's good. You're saying I will support it if it meets the bare minimum requirements.
There's a lot of spoon feeding that I really do not tolerate. And I mean, play a Call of Duty game.
I hate those games.
Yeah, don't we all? Where it's spoon feeding you, you're white and you're extremely masculine and you're really cool.
Really, I never got
you're
that.
all kinds of.
I never got
You're
that
all
from those
kinds
games.
of admirable. We've got.
Well, hold on.
We've got Patrick Swayze. Who's the guy?
I never took it as you're white and you're super masculine. I took it as this sort of like hardcore like patriotic jingoism, which is not really racist. It's just America, America, America. Everyone,
nationalist.
Everyone who threatens America bad and stuff like that. Really, I guess there's an element of not necessarily racism, but like cultural xenophobia of like other countries, other nations.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't.
That sort of stuff. But
I hate those games. But I would not call them racist. I would not call them sexist.
In media, like, I mean, so what this whole conversation is drawing on, I think, is the idea of that we've talked about, which is diversity for diversity's sake. What I see a lot, especially in the video games as a medium, is grizzled white man for grizzled white man's sake.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and we're seeing pushback against that. And
that's why
it's kicking off.
Because it's marketable, because it's so heavily marketable. You see, there was a whole controversy about the BioShock Infinite cover, where there was so much different art, but they were just like, we want to. I know, but
the publisher didn't let them.
But the publisher, they wanted a different cover for BioShock Infinite that wasn't a grizzled white man with a gun, and they said,
the publisher wanted that cover.
The developers for it, they were just like, this is a very artistic game. We're covering a lot of complex themes about nationalism and all this stuff. And so we want to represent, we want to like put this cover differently. And they said, no, you need a grizzled white man with a gun with shit on fire in the background.
Careful.
Because, it's like, it's past midnight. We're allowed to.
Midnight, I'm aware.
And so that is forced grizzled white man for forced grizzled white man's sake.
I would absolutely
and that's
agree,
something that I don't tolerate.
No,
I'm about to go off on Saturday to State College. I'm going to play Fallout 4, and I'm going to make a full-bodied woman of color as my character.
See, I've always felt super creepy
playing
as female characters, because like I'm a straight guy, and like when you're either in first person, in which case all you hear is the voice sometimes, which feels kind of creepy because the grunts, but. Well, no, actually, no, I don't feel creepy about the grunts because they're like exertion. But then there's the aspect of most video games, everyone is by default attractive. The men are attractive, the women are attractive.
Yeah.
And I just feel creepy staring at an attractive digital butt. That's really it. I feel creepy. But going less light, I would agree with you. I think, and it's interesting you put it in that light because I totally agree. Grizzled white dude for the sake of grizzled white dude is really, honestly, awful. And
dry,
the industry,
old, stale,
literally
gone. Get it out of here.
The industry suffers from it.
Yeah.
And we're seeing pushback against it.
Thank God.
In the same way, where we are reaching a saturation point on the independent scene that is breaking into more mainstream avenues of distribution, and people are getting their hands on it. And it is slowly but surely starting to reflect in the mainstream. Slowly. Very slowly. But would you not agree?
But that's how the culture goes. The culture changes slowly. And I do agree, and that's fantastic, and I love it. Which is why, I mean, boy, I talk about Dragon's Dogma a while ago. You had full control of your character's, like, gender, body type, ethnicity. It was fantastic. You could be any size and shape and type of person you wanted to be, and that was so cool.
Interestingly enough, because I know you love to talk about the gender binary, whereas I have a different view on it.
Absolutely.
The Saints Row 2, if you ever played it, gender was a sliding scale and not a male or female.
Oh, wow. Wait, which Saints Row?
2.
I played 3 and 4. I don't know if that was in it, but
no,
yeah,
it was
that's
not.
really...
It was not. People actually complained about that, not because of political reasons, but because they could make less funny characters because of it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it was some political reasons.
Honestly, it was probably just programming.
Slowly motivated
well, no,
to
honestly, it was probably just a programming thing because the newer engine was much more complex. And so it was probably harder to animate attributes that could be anywhere on a range rather than having... Because now you have 2, which establishes 2 baselines, which you can easily account for, as opposed to you have these things that could fall anywhere between point A and B.
I don't get to play as many or any androgynous characters or non-gender binary characters in video games.
Yeah, and let's not touch on that issue for now.
No,
'cause that's a heated debate
oh
we
boy,
already
it's
had.
something I want to like draw way back to, and boy, I can't even remember. There's a
Something I do want to talk about briefly, but you talk about your thing first, actually.
See, I totally lost where it was at, but
Sorry.
there aren't many games where you can play as the sort of the least represented protagonist character, especially like portrayed in a cool, badass way of a, I think like the ultimate straight valley, the bottommost pit of representation is a heavier woman of color in a video game, which is why, given the opportunity, I love doing that.
I guess. Whatever. To each their own, I suppose.
That's how I played Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah.
And she kicked ass.
I will say,
battle axe,
two things,
slamming
though.
them chimeras in the face.
Two things, and I might make note of these to put a pin in it later because I'm kind of tired and hungry.
Yeah.
But
let's wrap this up soon.
I kind of want to talk about what's going on at Yale right now, if you know about that, because it's interesting to me.
There was a protest?
Do you not know about it? We can talk about it.
I've heard a couple things.
We can talk about it at another time then, because also that would allow the whole scenario to unfold, and we could kind of look at it. Yeah, we could kind of look at it from a retrospective.
I had a pin in something earlier. I can't remember.
It was basically controversy exploded over emails about Halloween costumes, where someone sent out an email that was, and I'm super paraphrasing here, that was like, don't wear offensive costumes. Except it was nicer than that. It was, please don't wear offensive costumes.
Please.
And the other one was like, well, who dictates what's offensive? Maybe, unless it's something super egregious, there is a transgressive element to Halloween that we are losing. And if something offends you, perhaps you're wiser to just look away. And it just became a huge deal. And like I said, maybe we should put a pin in that as well. And I also want to talk on the notion of body shaming, but also, I'm blanking out, the notion of being entitled to another person's sexuality that kind of tends to go hand in hand with that sort of thing. And that's a big discussion, and I think we should put a pin in that as well.
Okay. Boy, I had a pin in something earlier, but gosh dang if I can't not even remember what it is.
Gosh dang it, Bobby.
Boy, we've hit on so much tonight. That's the thing. We start out with that good nerd talk, and then we drift crazy way far.
Sometimes we just start politically and stay political.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just stay topical.
And topical. So
but I don't know. I'm hungry, and I'm literally just fantasizing
God, I
about
had
food
something
right
I wanted
now.
to say about Fallout. I can't even remember.
Yes, Fallout.
I mean, you can control body type really well on that, and you can do it in a way. I haven't seen.
Sort of.
I haven't seen the full expanse of the female characters that you can play.
They do that thing in Saints Row where you have a triangle, which is thin,
a muscular, a heavy, and a skinny.
Thin, heavy, and muscular. Yes.
Yeah, and you're on a triangle there. And from the one Let's Play I watched, they
honestly
didn't.
Kind of bugs me. I wish I could have 3 sliders because I like it.
Well,
would be,
the dudes have those sliders too. What do you mean?
Well,
you
no,
mean
no.
in real life have those sliders?
3 separate sliders. One for heavy, one for muscular, and one for. Well, I guess heavy would be in a slider within. I guess one for muscular and one for weight. Because have you ever met those guys who look like they're fat, but they are literally just solid muscle?
Yeah.
I want one. I want to be one. Well, actually, that's how I'm built. That's why I don't work out a lot.
And is
because I gain weight easily, be it fat or muscle. But it's very difficult for me to get definition. I literally just get big.
And that's one of the complex ideas about, a person's body type is that, and about
There's
like the
more than a
stigmatization,
couple.
the fat shaming is that like muscle is not the polar opposite of fat.
It absolutely
Where
is not.
people like, I've seen
it's
stuff,
not
people
even
who
just
who
that.
would be considered visibly and,
It's not even
diagnosably they are obese, but they are extremely physically fit.
It's not even that. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but it's not even that. Like, there are people who they are built in such a way that when they get fat, they look different than when somebody who's built differently gets fat. They wear the weight differently.
Yeah, it happens
And then
different
there are people
ways.
when they get muscular, they look different from people who work out just as much. They wear the muscles differently. They develop differently. Like my lower body gets super muscular super fast. Like if I start running, I get like ridiculously huge butt and thighs, and it to the point where I actually had to buy new pants.
You can't see how hard I'm winking at the static right now.
When I was playing rugby, but yeah.
How's it going? But but it's interesting because though it seems really intuitive to assess someone's fitness immediately, visibly based on their body shape, it's
not that easy.
It's way more complex than that.
Well, and honestly, I've always been about like, I guess, not body acceptance, but just being aware that, you know, there's different types of body. Because I'm short, and I'm not the kind of guy that will ever be, you know, that kind of visually striking figure, regardless of my face and my, you know, that kind of attraction. Just as a silhouette, I will never be visually striking. And that's not to say anything about my attractiveness or lack thereof, but I've definitely noticed I get written off because of it, and it's not a pleasant thing when you realize it. So I can empathize.
Okay.
It's probably not nearly to the same extent, but I can empathize.
Okay.
But I have a lot to say on that subject, and I'm literally fantasizing about food.
Okay.
So
Well,
I think we've covered a lot.
we sure have. This has been a good episode.
So
Why don't we start 10:30 and it's
it's
around
almost
and it's
12:30.
Yeah, all right. That's a good
So, like, it's
near
a solid
2 hours.
2
So we're going to go
hours.
grab some food. But thank you, everybody, for listening to the Power 92.3 WKVR. I'm sorry I didn't do any call sign in the last, like, hour, 45 minutes, where that would have signified that you were listening to us before we started talking about it right now. But you've been listening to The Slouch with Jdox and...
Oh, static.
Yeah. I throw it to you intentionally when I know you're not
Food
paying
on the
attention just to
brain.
mess with you. We're going to go get some good food, but thank you for listening. Once again, opinions displayed on this show are not representative of 92.3 WKVR or of Juniata College. This is all personal stuff. If you would like to send in any responses to anything we've talked about, or questions, queries, comments, or anything else, you can send that to the Slouch at Juniata College, Box 726 at 1700 Moore Street, Huntington, Pennsylvania 16652. Again, that is Box 726, and we will talk to you next week, Tuesday, 10:30 or 11 p.m. Wherever you wanna. Let's keep saying. I want to move it back to 10. You think I move it back to 10?
I'd be fine with that.
10 p.m. Tuesday nights. All right. Wow, I was trying to outro right then, but I didn't have the actual computer playlist queued up, so I have to switch us right on off then. Get our dumb garbage right off this air. Now we are now we got some Circles by Switchfoot. Oh, if you were listening to any of all of what we were playing on the Slouch, because I'm trying to upload this onto YouTube, but I think it's honestly going to because I've had background music playing, I might get flagged for it, honestly. But what we listened to a lot during this broadcast, if you want to, give them some business, we listened to The Vergance. The Vergance's album Paradigm 3, Lost Continent, and Hiko Shrine. That is The Vergance, Virgance. They are available on Bandcamp and SoundCloud and all that. Go find them. Also, Malka's album, The Constant State, Malka, Malka. Also, Nicole Dollenganger.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not going to spell out that whole thing, but thank you for listening. Good night.